Imagine for a moment. The year is somewhere around the 5th century BC. There is no alarm clock, no gentle chime from a phone. Your wake-up call is the faint, gray light struggling to push through the small opening of your window. In your small room, the air is cool and still. You are an athlete, and your day begins long before the sun's. You stir on your simple bed, a straw mattress that rustles with every slight movement. The sound is dry and papery against the quiet of the morning. You try to stretch, but your muscles are tight from yesterday's efforts. They ache with a deep and familiar burn. For you, this is the feeling of progress. Welcome to your life as a prospective Olympian. The first task of the day is nourishment. In the main room of your modest home, your simple breakfast is waiting. There are no grand feasts here, not yet. This meal is functional, designed for strength and spirit. You sit down to a bowl of barley porridge. It's thick and warm, but not particularly flavorful. You might mix in a handful of dried figs, their intense sweetness a welcome contrast to the blandness of the grain. According to some accounts, the famous Spartan Victor Charmis, who won the sprint back in 668 BC, trained on a diet made up entirely of dried figs. You chew on one and consider if that's the secret. Alongside your porridge, you have a piece of fresh cheese and a chunk of simple wheat bread. To drink, there is water, or perhaps a bit of wine, though it's heavily diluted. This isn't about pleasure, it's about fuel for the immense task ahead of you. As you finish your meal, your mentor arrives. He is your gymnast, a word we might translate as coach or trainer, but he is so much more than that. He is the architect of your entire being. He doesn't just watch your form or count your repetitions. His fundamental duty is to shape you according to the ideal of a rete. This is a core Greek concept, one that combines physical skill with virtue, with moral character, and with courage. Your gymnast isn't just training a body, he is forging a soul. He is responsible for your complete development, a philosophy the Greeks called kalokagathia. The goal is to create a perfect harmony between a beautiful, capable body and a good, sound mind. So when he looks at you, he is assessing more than your physical readiness. He is judging your character, your discipline, your commitment. Your journey to Olympia is not just about winning a race, it's about becoming the ideal citizen. His presence is a constant, quiet pressure, a reminder of the monumental standards you are expected to meet. Now, you walk with your gymnasts through the awakening city. The air still holds the night's chill, but you can smell the smoke from breakfast fires and hear the distant sounds of a world coming to life. Your destination is the heart of your existence, the gymnasium. The name itself comes from the Greek word gymnos, which means naked. Don't worry, we'll get to that. The gymnasium is not what you might picture today. It is a sprawling, open-air complex, a vibrant hub of community life. Here, the thud of bodies hitting the wrestling pit mixes with the sound of philosophical debates. The grunts of weightlifters are a backdrop to the melodies of a lyre from a music lesson. This is where your physical and intellectual worlds merge. These institutions were state-run, and in theory, they were open to all free male citizens. But the truth was a little more complicated. Most ordinary people, the farmers, the potters, the laborers, simply couldn't afford to be here. They had fields to plow and wares to sell. They could not dedicate their entire days to the singular pursuit of athletic perfection. So, you look around and see the sons of the wealthy, the leisured elite. The gymnasium, in practice, was a place that defined what it meant to be an ideal Greek man, a status reserved for a select few. It stood in stark contrast to the lives of non-Greeks, slaves and women, all of whom were barred from entry. This place is your school, your training ground, and your social club, all rolled into one. It's time to prepare. You head to the changing area and begin to strip off your tunic. Yes, all of it. Because here, all training and all competition are done in the nude. According to one popular myth, this tradition started with a runner named Orsippus of Megara back in 720 BC. The story goes that he lost his loincloth during a race and discovered he could run much faster without it. While that's a nice story, the custom had much deeper roots. For one, it was practical, offering you complete freedom of movement. It was also an aesthetic choice, a celebration of the perfected male physique you are all working so hard to achieve. But more profoundly, nudity was a powerful social equalizer. In the gymnasium, it doesn't matter if you arrived in the finest robes or the most humble rags. Once you are stripped bare, all of those markers of wealth and status fall away. Your success or failure rests entirely on the merits of your own body and your own character. It's a humbling and unifying experience. Before you step out into the training grounds, you perform a vital ritual. You take out your aribalos, a small, narrow-necked ceramic pot filled with olive oil. You pour some into your palm and begin to methodically anoint your entire body. The oil is cool on your skin. This practice was so fundamental to athletic life that the cost of providing the oil was a major public expense. The thick coat of oil, known as gloyos, serves a practical purpose. It will protect your skin from the harsh sun and the fine dust that cakes every surface here. You now stand, gleaming in the morning light, your skin protected, your status erased, ready for the real work to begin. You are no longer the son of a wealthy merchant, you are simply an athlete. In the open-air courtyard, you begin your warm-ups. The air is starting to warm up, carrying the scent of dry earth and olive oil. Your training equipment is, by our modern standards, incredibly rudimentary, but it is perfectly designed for its purpose. You walk over to a rack of stone weights called halteres. Imagine something like a cross between a dumbbell and a kettlebell, carved from solid rock. They weigh anywhere from 2 to 9 kilograms, or about 4 to 20 pounds. You pick up a pair. The stone is cool and rough against your palms. You use them for strength exercises, curls and presses, building the power needed for your event. If you were a long jumper, you'd be practicing swinging these very stones to gain momentum for your jump. It's all about functional, practical strength. If your discipline is the javelin, you practice with the acorn, a wooden spear roughly your own height. The philosopher and general Xenophon wrote that to prevent injuries during drills, it was wise to fit the javelin's tip with a protective sphere. You can hear the whistle of the acorn as your fellow athletes practice their throws, aiming for distance and accuracy across the dusty field. For you, maybe today is a combat day. You head over to a specific area of the gymnasium known as the palastra, the designated space for boxing and wrestling. Here, you see athletes training on the korikos, the ancient version of a punching bag. If you're a boxer, you practice on a smaller, lighter bag filled with grain or flour. The sound is a series of soft, rhythmic thuds. But if you're a pancratiast, a practitioner of the brutal all-out combat sport, your bag is much larger and heavier, filled with sand. It swings with a dangerous momentum, and the impact of your fist is met with a dense, solid thwack that simulates the weight of a real opponent. Sparring is a constant part of your routine. You and your training partner circle each other in a pit filled with soft, deep sand. The sand cushions your falls and makes every movement a little more difficult, building your endurance. Evidence suggests these practice bouts were often conducted with a lighter intensity. The goal was to refine technique and build reflexes, not to inflict serious injury before an important competition. Still, the grunts are real, and the sweat drips from your oiled skin, making patterns in the sand below. Cross-training was also very common. Many athletes believed that participating in multiple disciplines created a more balanced and capable physique. The writer Philostratos even recorded the extreme suggestion that some athletes could build their strength by wrestling animals. You glance at your coach and hope he doesn't have any similar ideas for your afternoon session. For now, you focus on the rhythm of your training, the burn in your muscles, and the solid feel of the earth beneath your bare feet. As the sun reaches its peak and begins its slow descent, your training for the day concludes. You are utterly exhausted. Every muscle in your body hums with fatigue. Your skin is covered in a thick, grimy paste of oil, your own sweat, and the fine dust of the gymnasium. Now comes another essential ritual: getting clean. You take out your slenges, which you might know better by its Latin name, a strigil. It's a curved metal scraper, usually made of bronze. You begin the meticulous process of scraping the accumulated layers of gunk from your body. The sensation is strange, a firm pressure that pulls away the day's filth. The sludge that comes off you is sometimes collected. In a strange twist of ancient sports medicine, this athlete's grime was often bottled and sold as a popular, if slightly disgusting, remedy for aches and pains. After you've scraped yourself as clean as you can, you head to the baths. Don't picture luxurious Roman-style baths, these are much simpler. You use sponges and basins of cool water to wash away the last remnants of the gloyos. There is no soap for you to use. In your time, soap is generally reserved for medicinal purposes or for doing laundry, not for personal hygiene. Somehow, through it all, you manage to feel clean and refreshed. The cool water is a blessing on your tired muscles. Now that your physical work is done, it's time to think about recovery and nutrition. And this is where a major shift in athletic culture becomes clear. According to historians, around 480 BC, a long-distance runner named Dromius of Stymphalus introduced a radical new idea: a diet heavy in meat. This might not sound strange to you, but in ancient Greece, meat was a luxury. For most people, it was something eaten only during religious festivals when an animal was sacrificed. For you, as an elite athlete, A diet requiring large quantities of meat would have been prohibitively expensive, possible only because you come from a wealthy family or have a rich patron supporting you. Your very diet is now a status symbol. It was even specialized. If you're a runner or a jumper, you're advised to eat goat meat. If you're a boxer or a thrower, you eat bull meat to build power. And if you're a wrestler trying to gain mass, you eat fatty pork. Not everyone thought this was a great idea. Some military thinkers of the day argued that this diet made athletes soft and over-reliant on excessive food and rest, rendering you unfit for the hardship of a real military campaign. But your day is not over. The Greek educational system, the paideia, was founded on the belief that physical and intellectual growth were inseparable. In keeping with the ideal of kalokagathia, your evening is dedicated to cultivating your mind. You might attend a lecture given by a traveling philosopher right here on the grounds of the gymnasium. You could engage in lively debates with your peers, sharpening your wit and your reason. And you would certainly study music. Music was considered absolutely essential for developing a moral character and for calming the soul after a hard day of physical exertion. The philosopher Plato himself declared the need for gymnastics for the body and music for the soul. As night falls, you finally head home. You are not just a machine of muscle. You are a complete person, your body, mind, and spirit all being molded by this all-encompassing, relentless, and quiet grind. There, we have survived the daily grind and witnessed the sweat-soaked training of an ancient athlete, and yet, the most defining moments are still to come. We are marching towards the sacred road to Olympia to swear an unbreakable oath over slices of boar flesh, and ultimately, to witness the brutal no-holds-barred combat of the pancration that would forge legends. But a word of caution before we proceed on this perilous pilgrimage. The council that sanctions these historical expeditions has certain rights. Liking this chronicle registers your journey in the official annals of the Games. Subscribing to the channel ensures your name is on the charter itself, granting you passage. To neglect these duties is to risk being lost to the archives, a nameless shade doomed to wander the footnotes of history. To avoid such a grim fate, I strongly advise you to make your mark. Our continued passage to Olympia depends on it. Before you could ever dream of competing, before the roar of the crowd or the glory of victory, you had to get there. The journey to Olympia wasn't just a trip. It was a pilgrimage, a test of will that began months before the first event. It started not with a foot race, but with a declaration. Your story begins months before the Games are set to begin. From the city-state of Elis, the permanent home of the Olympic administration, special heralds are sent out. These men are called spondophoroi. You see them arrive in your own city-state, their footsteps kicking up the dry dust of the main square. They carry only a staff and a powerful message, one sanctioned by a treaty supposedly dictated by the Oracle of Delphi itself. They've come to announce the Ekacheria, the sacred truce. For the duration of this truce, all roads to Olympia are sacred ground. The constant state of low-level warfare between Greek city-states is expected to pause. This divine proclamation allowed people from all over the Hellenic world to travel safely. Now, here's the thing. The Ekacheria wasn't a magical switch that brought total peace to Greece. According to historians, it was less a general armistice and more a sacred guarantee of safe passage. Think of it like a divine diplomatic immunity. Your journey to and from the Games was protected. The truce would officially begin 7 days before the festival and last for 7 days after, giving you a protected window for your long travels. This allowed athletes, your family, artists, and thousands of spectators to converge on this one holy site without fear of being caught in a regional conflict. The safety of the traveler became a religious obligation. But the world of men is rarely so simple. In the 5th century BC, you might hear whispers of the truce being violated. The political tensions that defined ancient Greece didn't just vanish. Evidence suggests there were notable breaches. In 424 BC, Sparta threatened to invade the sanctuary itself, a shocking act of defiance. Even more scandalous, during the Games of 365 BC, Arcadian forces actually attacked Olympia while the festival was in progress. The sanctity of the truce was a powerful ideal, but it relied on mortal men to uphold it. To enforce this sacred law, the judges of the Games, the Hellenodikai, held immense power. They could impose massive fines on entire cities for breaking the truce. For your city-state, being barred from the Games or hit with a crippling financial penalty was a significant deterrent. It was a constant reminder that the Olympics weren't just an athletic event. They were an agreement you made with the gods, and breaking that agreement had serious, real-world consequences. This system, for the most part, worked. And so, with the truce declared, your own journey could begin. Don't worry, the gods are supposedly watching over you. With the promise of the truce echoing through your city, you now face the reality of the road. For you, an aspiring athlete, the journey to Olympia is an immense and perilous task. You are not alone. From distant colonies in what we now call Spain, France, and North Africa, others like you begin their own long trek. Your world is converging on a single point in the Peloponnese. For most, this means walking, for months. Imagine your situation. You've packed lightly, carrying only what is essential. Your sandals, made of simple leather, feel thin against the rough, unpaved roads. The sun beats down on you during the day, and the nights can be surprisingly cold. The terrain itself is an opponent. You traverse steep mountain passes and navigate winding coastal paths. Some with more resources might travel with a donkey or a mule to carry their supplies. If your family is wealthy, you might even have a springless wooden cart. This sounds like a luxury, but you feel every single rock and rut in your bones. Congratulations, you are now slightly faster and significantly more rattled. These ancient roads were not the smooth, engineered highways of today. According to historical accounts, they were often little more than treacherous dirt tracks. Widespread use of horses for simple travel just wasn't practical in the rugged Greek landscape. This made the journey incredibly slow and physically demanding. In a way, this long walk was the unofficial first event of the Olympics. It was a test of your endurance and your resolve. Could you even survive the trip to the competition? Only the most physically conditioned and mentally tough would complete this pilgrimage. But here's the thing, the terrain wasn't your only worry. In the lonely stretches between cities, bandits were a constant threat. You walk a little faster when you pass through the notorious mountain route between Athens and Corinth, a known haven for robbers. You travel in groups whenever possible, finding safety in numbers with other pilgrims. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke from your small nightly campfires. The sound of crickets is a constant companion. Through it all, you share stories with fellow travelers, your shared purpose creating a temporary community on the long road. Somehow, they managed, and somehow, so will you. After weeks, or perhaps months, of this grueling travel, you finally cross into the territory of Elis. The air here feels different. You can sense that you are approaching the heart of it all. The dust of the long road is caked onto your skin, and your muscles ache with a deep weariness. But you've made it. You have passed the first great test. You have survived the journey. Now, the real scrutiny begins. Your arrival doesn't mark the end of your trials, it signals the start of a new, more intense phase of your Olympic dream. Welcome to Elis. Upon completing your long and difficult journey, this is your mandatory first stop. You and every other prospective athlete must assemble here for a full month before the games begin. Think of it not as a welcoming party, but as the most intense training camp and qualification round you will ever experience. This month is designed to prove that you are truly worthy of competing at Olympia. The comforts of home are a distant memory now. Your focus is singular. In Elis, you are under the complete control of the Hellenodikai, the judges of the Greeks. These 10 officials, chosen from the Elean elite, have absolute authority over you. You see them walking through the training grounds, their presence casting a palpable sense of pressure over the entire area. They watch your every move, scrutinizing your technique, your fitness, and even your character. They can disqualify you for any reason, from a lack of skill to a poor attitude. Their judgment is final. The air here smells of sweat, olive oil, and nervous energy. This is your proving ground. The first thing the judges do is verify that you meet the two most fundamental requirements. First, they must confirm that you have already been in continuous training for the 10 months prior to your arrival. This rule ensured that only the most dedicated athletes, those who had structured their entire year around this goal, would even be considered. You have to swear to it. This wasn't a casual competition, it was a full-time vocation. Second, the Hellenodikai had to officially sort you into the correct age category: Paids for boys, typically between 12 and 17, and Andres for men. Since formal birth records didn't exist, this was a judgment call based entirely on your physical appearance. Now, your very identity is put to the test. The judges must verify your eligibility on several strict criteria. You have to be a freeborn male of Greek descent. No slaves, no foreigners, and absolutely no women were allowed to compete. You also had to have a clean record. If you had ever been convicted of a crime or accused of blasphemy against the gods, your Olympic journey ended right here in Elis. This entire process was a powerful tool for reinforcing a shared Greek identity. It brought men from all across the Mediterranean together under one common set of rules, all judged by the judges of the Greeks. You spend the next month in a state of constant exertion and evaluation. You train daily under the watchful eyes of the judges. The regimen is strict. Your diet is controlled. Your every action is a performance. This wasn't just about weeding out the unfit. It was about creating a unified body of competitors who had all gone through the same rigorous, state-controlled preparation. It leveled the playing field, ensuring that when the games began, every athlete had been through the same trial by fire. The days are long and exhausting. The nights are filled with the rustling sounds of your fellow athletes, sleeping on simple pallets, all of you dreaming of the same thing, earning the right to walk the final steps to Olympia. The grueling month of training in Elis is finally over. You have survived the scrutiny. You have been deemed worthy. On the first official day of the festival, you are led to the culmination of this preparatory phase, the Olympic oath. You walk into the Bouleuterion, or council house, a formal stone building at Olympia. Your father, your brothers, and your trainers walk with you. The air inside is cool and heavy with incense and anticipation. This is a moment of profound solemnity. There, you are brought before a terrifying statue of Zeus Zeus, the keeper of oaths. He is depicted with a thunderbolt in each hand, a visceral reminder of the divine punishment that awaits any who would break their vow. This is not a friendly, forgiving God, this is a God of justice and retribution. Priests bring forward the bloody, sacrificed entrails of a wild boar. The smell is raw and metallic. You, along with every other athlete, must place your hands upon the boar's flesh and swear your sacred vow. This was a powerful and intimidating ritual, designed to sear the moment into your memory. Your voice joins a chorus of others, swearing aloud for all to hear. You swear that you have faithfully adhered to the 10-month training requirement. You swear that you will compete fairly and with honor. And you swear that you will commit no evil act against the sanctity of the Olympic Games. This transforms the rules from a simple code of conduct into a sacred contract between you and the King of the Gods. Then, the judges themselves step forward. They also take an oath, swearing to be impartial, to judge fairly, and to refuse any and all bribes. In this moment, everyone, competitor and official alike, is bound by the same divine law. 2 days before the games officially commence, the final leg of your pilgrimage begins. A great procession forms in the city of Elis. You take your place alongside all the other qualified athletes. You are joined by your trainers, the 10 Hellenodikai in their ceremonial purple robes, priests, and a massive crowd of spectators. Together, you all begin the final walk to Olympia. This journey covers 58 kilometers, or about 36 miles, along a path known as the Sacred Way. Your feet, now rested from the month of training, find a steady rhythm on the dusty road. This 2-day walk is the final act of spiritual preparation. It is both a physical challenge and a religious ceremony. At a point along the Sacred Way, the entire procession stops at the sacred Pierian spring. You watch as a pig is sacrificed. Its blood is sprinkled over the Hellenodikai in a ritual of purification. They then wash themselves in the spring's cool water. This ritual was meant to cleanse the participants, washing away the impurities of the outside world and focusing their minds on the sacred festival ahead. It was a shared experience that bonded you to everyone on that road. Finally, you see it. The great sanctuary of Olympia rises before you. The arrival of your massive procession signals the true start of the Olympiad. The quiet religious grove is instantly transformed into the bustling, vibrant center of the entire Greek world. You have done it. You have endured the proclamation of the truce, the perils of the road, the scrutiny of the judges, and the weight of a sacred oath. You have walked the sacred way. The journey itself has filtered out all but the most dedicated, the most pious, and the most resilient. You have earned your place. Now, you can finally step onto the hallowed ground of Olympia, ready to compete. After all your training and your long journey, the 5-day festival at Olympia is finally here. But the first day is not what you might expect. There are no cheering crowds, no races, no contests. The truth was, the ancient Olympics were a religious event first and a sporting event second. So before you can compete, you must pay your respects to the gods. It's the morning of day 1. You join a great procession of judges, fellow athletes, and your trainers. You walk toward the Bouleuterion, the council house, which sits inside the sacred precinct of Olympia. The air is thick with anticipation and the smell of dry dust kicked up by hundreds of sandaled feet. You can feel the warm Greek sun on your neck, a stark contrast to the cool stone buildings of the Altis, the sacred grove, that surround you. For every person here, this procession is the first step towards glory or disappointment. Inside the council house, the atmosphere is heavy and solemn. You are led before a fearsome statue of Zeus Horkios, Zeus of the Oaths. According to the historian Pausanias, this statue was designed to strike terror into the hearts of would-be cheaters. Here, you, along with your father, your brothers, and your trainer, place your hands on the sacrificial remains of a wild boar. The texture is rough and strangely warm, the smell coppery and visceral. You speak the words of the Olympic oath, swearing to compete with honor and to abide by all the rules. The sound of your own voice echoes slightly in the chamber, a promise made to the king of the gods himself. With the oath sworn, the judges, known as the Hellenodikai, officially finalize the age group classifications. You are now formally entered into the men's or the boys' contests. The rest of your day is spent in quiet reflection and personal sacrifice. You move through the Altus, a grove dotted with altars to various gods. The air now carries the scent of incense and roasting meat from the small offerings being made. You say a quiet prayer to Zeus, asking for his favor in the trials to come. This day isn't about physical readiness, it's about spiritual preparation for the immense challenge ahead. The second day dawns, and with it, the beginning of the games. Welcome to the pentathlon. Introduced in 708 BC, this was the ultimate test of the all-around athlete. It combined 5 different events: the discus throw, the long jump, the javelin throw, a short foot race, and wrestling. The Greeks believed the physique of a pentathlete was the most perfect, a harmonious balance between a runner's leanness and a wrestler's bulk. To win, you couldn't just be good at one thing. The most accepted theory holds that you had to win at least 3 of the 5 events to be declared the champion. The first event is the discos, or discus throw. You step onto the field and pick up the heavy, solid bronze disc. It's cold and surprisingly weighty in your hands, much heavier than a modern discus. Unlike the elegant spinning technique you might see today, your method is more direct. You hold the disc high, take a powerful step forward, and swing your arm in a forceful arc. There are no nets or cages here. Your discus soars through the air and lands with a dull thud in the dirt. You get 5 attempts, and only your longest throw matters. Next, you move to the halma, the long jump. And this is where things get truly strange. Imagine trying to do a long jump while holding weights. In each hand, you grip a haltier, a piece of carved stone or metal weighing anywhere from 2 to 9 kilograms. You don't get a running start. Instead, you jump from a standing position. You swing the heavy haltiers forward as you leap, then swing them back just before you land, hoping to propel your body a little further. The entire event is performed to the sound of an aulos, a double pipe flute. The gentle, reedy music seems at odds with the explosive effort, a reminder that grace was judged alongside pure distance. You pick up the akon, the javelin. This is a light, wooden spear about as tall as you are, sometimes tipped with a small metal point. But the real key to a successful throw is a piece of equipment called the ankyle. It's a small leather thong that you wrap around the javelin's center of mass. By hooking your fingers into a loop, you can give the javelin a powerful spin as you release it. You can hear it hum as it flies, the gyroscopic spin keeping it stable and straight, allowing it to travel much farther and with greater accuracy. This wasn't just a sport, it was direct practice for warfare and hunting. After the throwing events, it's time for the stadion. This is a simple, raw sprint. You line up for a race that covers one length of the stadium, a distance of about 192 meters, or 630 feet. The track beneath your bare feet is just packed clay. The sun beats down on your oiled skin. For this brief, explosive moment, all that matters is speed. The burn in your lungs is immediate and intense. This race, part of the pentathlon, is just a taste of the dedicated running events to come. Through it all, you have to conserve enough energy for the final, decisive contest. The fifth and final event of the pentathlon is pale, or wrestling. This is often where the entire competition is decided. You and your opponent are both slick with olive oil, making grips difficult and slippery. The warm sand of the wrestling pit sticks to your bodies. In the pentathlon, this was upright wrestling. Your goal is to throw your opponent to the ground 3 times. A fall was counted if their back, hip, or shoulder touched the earth. There's no striking allowed, just a grueling contest of leverage, strength, and endurance. Winning the pentathlon meant you were a master of all the skills a Greek man should possess. With the pentathlon complete, the focus of the games shifts to the running events. These were the oldest and most prestigious competitions at Olympia. For the first 52 years of the games, the stadion sprint was the one and only event. Imagine yourself as a spectator for these races. You find a spot on the simple, grassy embankments that line the stadium. The air is hot and still, filled with the low murmur of the crowd and the smell of trampled grass and warm earth. Before a race begins, the athletes are led to a stone starting line called a bulbus. Carved into the stone are two parallel grooves for the runner's feet, giving them purchase for their start. But how do you ensure a fair start for everyone? The Greeks invented a clever mechanism called the hisplex. It was a system of hinged gates, one for each runner, all connected by ropes to a judge's post. When the judge pulled a cord, all the gates would slam down at the same instant, releasing the runners. You watch the athletes take their positions, the tension palpable. The crowd falls silent for a moment, waiting for the sound of the gates dropping. The first and most important race is the stadium. It's a pure, unadulterated sprint over 192-meter length of the track. The runners explode from the hisplex in a cloud of dust. Their bare feet pound against the clay track, a rhythmic, frantic drumming. The crowd erupts, a wave of sound that follows the runners to the finish line. There is no second or third place here. There is only the winner, who in an instant becomes a hero, his name forever recorded in the annals of Olympia. Next up is the Diolos. This race is a test of speed over a longer distance, 2 lengths of the stadium, or about 384 meters. You watch the runners sprint down the track, but their race isn't over at the far end. They must navigate a sharp, difficult turn around a post called a campter and then race all the way back to the start-finish line. It introduces a new layer of strategy. Go out too fast, and you won't have the strength for the turn and the final stretch. It's a punishing sprint that required both speed and a bit of tactical thinking. After the sprints comes the dolichos, the long race. This was the ancient Greek version of a marathon, though the distance varied. It could be anywhere from 7 to 24 stads, meaning between 1400 and 4800 meters. You watch the athletes settle into a completely different rhythm for this race. Their pace is measured, their breathing deep and controlled. This isn't about explosive power, it's a grinding test of endurance and pacing. The sun feels hotter during this event, as you watch the runners lap the stadium again and again. Their oiled bodies are soon caked in a layer of dust, their faces masks of grim determination. For these men, victory came not in a flash of speed, but through sheer, relentless stamina. But perhaps the most visually striking race was the hoplitodromos, the race in armor. Imagine the runners lining up at the bulbis again. This time, however, they are not completely bare. Each man is wearing a heavy bronze helmet and carrying an aspis, the large concave shield of a Greek hoplite soldier. The race itself was a sprint of 1 or 2 diolos lengths, about 384 to 768 meters. The starting signal drops, and instead of the quiet patter of feet, the stadium is filled with the clatter and clang of bronze. You watch the men struggle under the weight, their shields, weighing up to 13 kilograms, throwing them off balance. This was an explicit test of military fitness, a direct simulation of a soldier's charge on the battlefield. So the next time you complain about running with your phone, just remember these guys did it carrying a shield that could stop an arrow. Now, we move on to what many in the crowd considered the main event. It's time for the combat sports. These were by far the most violent, popular, and dangerous contests at Olympia, and they drew the biggest crowds. Welcome to the Scama, a simple sandpit dug out for these events. The atmosphere here is different. It's electric, raw, and a little frightening. The scent of oil and sweat is heavy in the air, soon to be mixed with the unmistakable smell of blood. The crowd presses in close, eager for the brutality to begin. First up is pygmachia, or ancient boxing. You see 2 fighters enter the Scama. They are not wearing padded gloves like modern boxers. Instead, their hands and wrists are wrapped in himantes. These are long thongs of tough leather. In earlier versions, they were designed to protect the boxer's hands. But later, a more damaging version called the oxys came into use, with harder, sharper pieces of leather intended to inflict maximum damage. It's less like a glove, and more like a weaponized set of brass knuckles. The rules, or lack thereof, are what made it so brutal. There were no rounds to give the fighters a rest. There were no time limits. The fight simply continued until one man was finished. And crucially, there were no weight classes. A small, agile fighter could find himself facing a man twice his size. You could strike with any part of your hand, and holding your opponent was forbidden. If you knocked your opponent down, the fight didn't stop. You were allowed to continue hitting him as he tried to get back up. You watch as the 2 men circle each other in the hot sand. The sound is not the soft thud of a modern boxing glove, but the sharp, wet slap of leather on skin and the sickening crunch of it hitting bone. There are only two ways for a fight to end. One man is knocked unconscious or he surrenders. To do that, he couldn't speak. He simply had to raise his index finger, a small, desperate signal that he could take no more. It was a brutal calculus of pain and endurance, played out for the roaring crowd. Following the boxers, the wrestlers, or pale athletes take their place in the scammer. This form of combat feels different. It's less about pure, concussive force and more about leverage, technique, and overpowering strength. You watch as the two men, their bodies already gleaming with olive oil, are sometimes dusted with a fine powder to allow for a better grip. The match begins, and it's a silent struggle of muscle against muscle. The only sounds are the grunts of exertion and the slip and slide of oiled skin as they grapple in the sand. There were two main forms of wrestling. The upright version, orthpale, was the one used in the pentathlon. The goal was to score 3 falls. A fall was any time your opponent's back, hip, or shoulder touched the ground. But in the standalone wrestling event, ground wrestling, or Kato pale, was also common. In this version, the match continued on the ground until one competitor was forced to submit, usually by being put into a painful hold he couldn't escape. Biting and holds to the genitals were illegal, but nearly everything else was permitted. And now, for the event you've been waiting for. The one that drew the largest, most frenzied crowds. Welcome to the pancration. The name literally means all power, and it was the most brutal and dangerous sport in the ancient world. You can feel the energy of the crowd surge as the two pancratiasts enter the sandpit. These men were the superstars of the games, revered for their near-superhuman toughness. To the ancient Greeks, this was the ultimate combat sport, a terrifying combination of boxing and wrestling. The rules of pancration were frighteningly simple, there were almost none. Kicking was legal and widely used. Choking your opponent was a common strategy. Twisting and breaking fingers, toes, and other joints was a perfectly acceptable way to gain an advantage. You could do almost anything to force your opponent into submission. The only two things that were consistently forbidden were biting and eye gouging. That is, unless you were competing in Sparta, where they apparently thought even those rules were a bit too restrictive. You watch two men engage in a life-or-death struggle. It's a chaotic flurry of kicks, punches, and grappling holds. One man might get the other in a stranglehold, while the second fighter tries to break his opponent's ankle to escape. The human body is pushed to its absolute limit of pain and endurance. There was no pretense of safety here. Death in the scammer was a very real possibility, and it did happen. Incredibly, an athlete could be crowned a victor even after dying, if their opponent submitted just as they expired. As you watch these contests, from the javelin throw to the armored race, it becomes clear what this was all about. The athletic program at Olympia was not just a collection of random sports. According to historians, it was a direct reflection of the Greek martial ideal. Every event was designed to test and display the skills of a citizen soldier. The javelin throw mimicked warfare, the hoplitodromos was a battlefield charge, and the combat sports were the ultimate test of a warrior's spirit. Don't worry, it's almost over. The striking absence of any team sports tells you something important about the culture. In the ancient Olympics, glory, what they called kleos, was a deeply personal pursuit. Victory was a testament to an individual's singular excellence, or éret. There were no silver or bronze medals. There was no good effort award. There was only the winner, who stood alone in the stadium, a hero favored by the gods, his name destined to be remembered for eternity. You are standing on the sacred ground of Olympia. The year could be any from the long history of the games. You have just sworn the great oath on slices of boar's flesh before a looming statue of Zeus. The air around you is thick with the smell of sacrificial smoke, roasting meat, and the nervous sweat of hundreds of your fellow athletes. The low murmur of the crowd is a constant hum in the background. As an athlete, you feel the immense weight of this moment. You've pledged to compete fairly, with honor, and to abide by all the rules of the games. It's a promise made not just to men, but to the gods themselves. But here's the thing about promises made under pressure. In the heat of competition, with the roar of the crowd in your ears, those oaths can feel distant. The glory of an Olympic victory was almost intoxicating. It meant a lifetime of fame, statues in your honor, and significant material rewards. You can almost taste the victory, feel the olive wreath on your head. This powerful temptation created a constant, simmering tension between the sacred ideal of the games and the very human desire to win at any cost. For you and every other competitor, the path to honor and the path to glory were not always the same. In this high-stakes environment, you quickly learn who holds the true power at Olympia. They are not kings or generals, but a select group of officials. You see them seated in places of honor, clad in distinctive purple robes that stand out against the earthy tones of the stadium. These are the Hellenodikai, the judges of the Greeks. Their faces are stern, their posture rigid, and their gaze seems to miss nothing. According to historians, their authority was absolute. Their judgment was final. The feeling they inspired in you, the athlete, was a mixture of deep respect and palpable fear. They were the referees, the jury, and the executioners of the Olympic code, all rolled into one. Now, you might assume these judges were a rotating panel, selected from all across the Greek world. But the truth was more parochial. In the city-state of Elis, which controlled the sanctuary of Olympia, the role of Hellenodikas was a hereditary honor. Evidence suggests they were chosen exclusively from the leading families of the region. Imagine you're a local boy from Elis. You'd grow up seeing these powerful figures, knowing they held the fate of the greatest festival in your world in their hands. This system effectively created a dynasty of judges, cementing the local control of Elis over a pan-Hellenic institution. For the athletes arriving from afar, it was a reminder that you were competing on someone else's turf. To prepare for their monumental task, these men underwent a period of intense training. For 10 months leading up to the games, the selected judges lived together in a special building in Elis called the Hellenodikeia. Imagine the atmosphere inside that hall. It's a quiet, studious place, a stark contrast to the boisterous energy of the training grounds. The air smells of old papyrus scrolls and oil lamps. The only sounds are the rustling of documents and the steady drone of the nomophilics, the guardians of the law, as they instruct the judges in training on every intricate rule and ancient tradition of the games. This was no simple orientation week. This 10-month sequestration was a judicial boot camp. The future judges were drilled relentlessly. They had to master the specific regulations for every single event, from the foot races to the brutal pancration. For these men, a bad call wasn't just an error. It was seen as a failure of their sacred duty, an offense against the gods of Olympia. This rigorous preparation was designed to ensure their competence and, theoretically, their impartiality. As an athlete, you could take some comfort in knowing the men in purple had studied for this, but their absolute power still left a cold knot of anxiety in your stomach. As the games begin, you see the Hellenodikai in their full glory. From your position on the dusty floor of the stadium, you watch them take their seats of honor. The brilliant purple of their robes, a color associated with royalty and power, seems to absorb the bright Greek sunlight. Their presence casts a long shadow over the proceedings, a visible symbol of their supreme authority. Their job went far beyond simply calling fouls. They were the ultimate organizers of this massive and chaotic event. Through it all, they were expected to remain serene, impartial, and unwavering. Before you ever set foot in the sacred stadium, you had already been under their scrutiny. The Hellenodikai were responsible for vetting every single athlete for eligibility. They had to confirm your Greek citizenship, your free status, and your moral character. They supervised your mandatory 1-month training period at Elis, watching your every move. They sorted you and your competitors into age categories and presided over the drawing of lots that determined your opponents. You can still feel the cold, impersonal touch of the token you drew from the silver urn. From start to finish, your Olympic journey was managed by these men. Their judgment on the field was final. What if you believed a call was wrong? Perhaps your opponent committed a foul the judge missed, or you were falsely accused of one yourself. In theory, you could appeal to the Olympic Council after the event. But here's the catch: the council could only punish the judge for making a bad decision. According to the rules, they could not overturn the result of the competition. The victory, or the loss, stood. This system left you, the athlete, with very little recourse. A single decision, right or wrong, could make or break your entire career, and there was nothing you could do about it. To prevent even the appearance of a conflict of interest, a law was eventually passed forbidding the Hellenodikai from competing in the games themselves. Now, let's address something you've surely noticed. Imagine you are standing on the starting line for the stadium foot race. The sun is hot on your bare shoulders. The coarse, sandy dirt of the track is warm and rough beneath your feet. A light breeze does little to cool you. You look to your left and right at your fellow competitors. You are all completely naked. Welcome to one of the most defining features of the ancient games. This tradition of athletic nudity was deeply ingrained in the Greek identity and served multiple purposes, some more practical than others. One of the key reasons, historians tell us, was cheating prevention. In an age of high-stakes competition, the absence of clothes made it impossible for an athlete to conceal anything. You couldn't hide a small weapon to use in the combat sports or any other illicit aid. As you stand there, feeling the air on your skin, there is a strange sense of transparency. You know with certainty that your opponent has no hidden advantage, and he knows the same about you. It leveled the playing field in a very direct and physical way. Don't worry, after the initial shock, it was considered perfectly normal. The origin of this practice is famously traced back to a single moment in 720 BC. Picture yourself in the crowd on that day. You're watching the final of the stadium, and a runner from Megara named Orsippus is pulling ahead. Suddenly, his loincloth, the standard athletic attire of the time, slips off. A gasp ripples through the spectators. But he doesn't stop. He keeps running, his body completely exposed, and crosses the finish line to win. Somehow, this wardrobe malfunction became a defining moment. What began as an accident was soon adopted as the official practice, an intentional act of disrobing that became a powerful symbol. Over time, this practice of competing in the nude evolved into a profound cultural statement. For the Greeks, to be able to show your physical form without shame was a mark of civilization. You stand on that Olympic field, naked, and you feel not disgrace, but a sense of pride. This act, according to the writers of the time, distinguished the free, civilized Hellenes from the barbarians, who considered public nudity shocking. It became an assertion of your maleness, your physical virtue, and your cultural identity as a Greek. Congratulations, you are now a walking, running, wrestling embodiment of Hellenic ideals. In the sprawling stadium of Olympia, you look around at the thousands of spectators packed onto the grassy embankments. The roar of the crowd is a wave of sound that washes over you. The air is filled with the smells of dust, sweat, and wine. But as you scan the faces, you notice something striking. They are all men. This world of elite, nude athletics had a direct and severe consequence: the strict prohibition of women from the games. This wasn't just a casual custom, it was the law, enforced with the harshest penalty imaginable. The rule was simple and brutal. Married women were forbidden not only from competing, but from even attending the games as spectators. The punishment for any woman caught breaking this rule was death. You've heard the chilling stories passed between athletes in the training grounds. The condemned woman would be taken to the nearby Mount Typean and thrown from its cliffs. The starkness of this law reveals just how seriously the Greeks guarded the masculine, ritualistic nature of their premier athletic festival. It was a world built by men, for men, and this rule was designed to keep it that way. Now, there were a couple of very specific exceptions. Amidst the sea of male faces, if you looked closely at the seats of honor opposite the judges, you would spot a solitary female figure. This was the priestess of the goddess Demeter Chamin. She was the only woman officially permitted to attend the games. Her presence was not for entertainment, it was a religious duty, a symbolic link between the earthly competition and the divine pantheon. She sat there, a silent and honored guest, representing a connection to the goddesses in an overwhelmingly male-dominated religious space. And then there is the story of the other famous exception, a woman named Kalipatera. Picture this, it's the day of the boxing finals, and the tension in the stadium is electric. Down in the enclosure reserved for trainers, a tall, cloaked figure watches the fight with an almost unbearable intensity. This is Kalipatera, a widow from a legendary athletic family. Her father, her brothers, and now her son, Pisidoros, were all Olympic champions. To see him compete, she has disguised herself as a male trainer. You can imagine her heart pounding against her ribs, the scratchy wool of her disguise feeling hot and suffocating as she tries to blend in. Her son wins. The final blow is struck, and the crowd erupts. Overcome with maternal pride and joy, Kalipatera forgets herself. She leaps over the low stone wall of the trainer's enclosure to rush to her son. As she jumps, her heavy robes fall away, revealing her identity. A collective gasp sucks the air out of the stadium. The roar of celebration dies into a stunned silence. She has broken the most sacred taboo of the Olympic Games, and everyone knows the penalty. Somehow, they manage to spare her. Out of deep respect for the incredible athletic legacy of her family, the Hellenodikai decided not to enforce the death penalty. It was an act of mercy, but it came with a consequence for everyone else. The incident prompted a new rule. From that day forward, all trainers, just like the athletes, were required to enter the stadium naked. As you, a future trainer, might realize, this was a direct, practical, and probably quite awkward solution to prevent any other women from trying the same disguise. It's a classic example of a rule being born from one person's brazen act. Despite the sacred oaths, the terrifying judges, and the very public nature of the events, you know that cheating happens. The pull of fame and fortune was simply too strong for some to resist. The most common and perhaps most corrosive form of corruption was bribery. It was the ancient world's version of match fixing, and it struck at the very heart of the Olympic ideal of fair competition. For you, the honest athlete, it was a source of constant worry. Was your next opponent truly competing, or had he already been paid to lose? One of the most infamous cases occurred in 388 BC. Imagine the whispers and rumors that must have spread through the Olympic village about the boxer Eupolis of Thessaly. He seemed just a little too confident, his victories a little too easy. The truth, as it eventually came out, was that he had bribed 3 of his opponents to take a dive. A similar scandal erupted in 332 BC, when an Athenian pentathlete named Callippus was caught bribing his rivals. These incidents sent shockwaves through the Greek world, revealing a dark underbelly to the glorious games. The corruption wasn't just limited to individual athletes. Sometimes entire city-states got involved. Imagine you are Stylos of Croton, one of the most celebrated runners of your time. You've just won another victory, and the sweet taste of success is still fresh. As you celebrate, officials from the wealthy city of Syracuse approach you. They make you an offer you can't refuse, a huge sum of money if you will simply declare yourself a citizen of Syracuse for your next victory. You accept the deal. It seems like easy money. But back in your true hometown of Croton, the news is met with fury and a deep sense of betrayal. Your victory was their victory. The impact on your legacy is swift and brutal. The people of Croton tear down the statue they had erected in your honor. In an ultimate act of civic rejection, they seize your house and convert it into a common prison. Your name becomes a curse. This story served as a harsh lesson for every athlete. Your victories belonged not just to you, but to your community, and betraying that trust had devastating consequences. Now, picture yourself in the combat sports arena. The ground is packed earth, slick with sweat and, occasionally, blood. The air is thick with dust and the grunts of exertion. Here, cheating was less subtle and far more brutal. You're watching a wrestling match, a tangle of muscle and strategy. Suddenly, you see the judge, a Hellanodicus, move in swiftly. His long rod flashes, striking one of the wrestlers hard across the back. The crowd murmurs. The wrestler had been caught trying to gouge his opponent's eyes or, in another common foul, bite him. According to vase paintings from the era, this was a constant struggle for the judges, keeping these violent contests from descending into outright brawls. Not all cheating was so physically aggressive. Some athletes turned to more esoteric methods. You might hear whispers among the tents about curse tablets. Imagine an athlete, desperate for an edge, scratching a curse against his rival onto a thin sheet of lead. The curse might wish for his opponent to become clumsy, weak, or forget his technique. He would then secretly hide this tablet in the athletic facilities, hoping its dark magic would do its work. It was a strange intersection of superstition and unsportsmanlike conduct, a form of ancient psychological, or perhaps supernatural warfare. So, what happened when you were caught breaking these rules? Near the judges' seats, you would always see the officials responsible for discipline. These were the mastigophoroi, or whip-bearers, and the rabdushoi, or rod-bearers. The sight of their long, thin rods was a constant and effective deterrent. They were the physical enforcers of the judge's will. Their entire purpose was to deliver punishment that was immediate, public, and painful, ensuring every athlete saw the price of an infraction. Imagine you're in a foot race, and in your eagerness, you make a false start. The judge signals. Before you can even reset, a whip-bearer steps forward. The sharp, ugly crack of the whip echoes through the stadium, and a welt rises on your skin. You have been flogged, right there on the track, in front of thousands. For a free Greek citizen, this was a profound humiliation. Corporal punishment like this was normally reserved for slaves. To endure it in the most public of settings was a deep and lasting shame, far worse than the physical sting of the lash. For more serious offenses like the bribery committed by Eupolis, the punishment went beyond a flogging. You would be disqualified and hit with an incredibly heavy fine. If you, as an individual athlete, couldn't pay, the burden fell upon your home city-state. Most cities would pay up to avoid the collective shame of having one of their citizens banned from the games. But the story didn't end there. The money collected from these fines was used to create a unique and powerful form of public shaming the Zanes. Welcome to the grand entrance of the Olympia Stadium. To get to the field of competition, you must follow a special path. This path is lined with a row of identical, gleaming bronze statues of Zeus. The sun glints off the metal surfaces. These are the Zanes. And as you get closer, you realize what they truly represent. Each one was paid for by the fine of a cheating athlete. You stop and read the inscription carved into the stone pedestal of one statue. It records the name of the offender, his city, and the details of his crime for all to see. This was the Walk of Shame. The first 6 of these statues, you learn from an inscription, were erected using the fines from that infamous bribery case involving the boxer Eupolis of Thessaly. His crime was now immortalized in bronze, a permanent part of the Olympic landscape. Every 4 years, for centuries, every single athlete who entered the stadium had to walk past these monuments to dishonor. It was a silent, powerful warning, a reminder to you and all who followed that victory was meant to be earned with the strength of your back and the speed of your feet, not with the weight of your purse. Through it all, these statues are a testament to a timeless truth: where there is great glory, there will always be the temptation to take a shortcut. The dust is finally settling over the sacred grounds of Olympia. The shouts of the crowd have softened to a respectful murmur. For days, you've endured the blistering heat, the grime, and the bone-deep exhaustion of the games. You have pushed your body past its limits, fueled by nothing more than water, a little food, and a ferocious need to prove your worth. Now, in the fading light of the 5th and final day, you stand with the other victors. Your muscles ache with a profound weariness, but your spirit is soaring. You've done it. You've won. So, what's your prize for this monumental effort? What reward awaits the man who has proven himself the best in all of Greece? Don't imagine a massive trophy or a comically oversized check. In this moment, standing before the temple of Zeus, your prize is something far more humble and infinitely more meaningful. Your prize is a simple wreath of leaves. This isn't just any wreath, of course. This is the kotinos, the olive crown. Later, on the final day of the games, you'll be brought forward in a formal ceremony. Before you stands a table made of gold and ivory, brought out from the nearby temple of Hera. Upon it rest the wreaths. When your name is called, you step forward. The air is thick with the scent of sacred incense and the wild, earthy smell of the olive branches. The wreath is placed upon your head. It's surprisingly light. The leaves cool against your sweat-dampened hair. This simple circlet is the only prize you will receive here at Olympia. There is no money, no material reward, and yet, it is everything. The process of creating your crown is steeped in ancient ritual, designed to connect your victory directly to the divine. The branches weren't just snipped from any old tree. They were harvested from a specific, sacred wild olive tree that grew near the temple of Zeus. This tree was known as the Elaia Kallistophanos, which translates beautifully to the olive beautiful for crowns. According to the lore, this was a descendant of the very olive tree Heracles himself planted at Olympia. Harvesting its branches was a solemn affair. The task was given to a young boy, chosen for a very specific reason. Both of his parents had to be alive. This symbolized a pure, unbroken lineage, and a life untouched by the sorrow of loss. Using a special golden sickle, this boy would carefully cut the branches, ensuring the sanctity of the prize was maintained from the very beginning. This focus on symbolic honor over cash prizes was a core part of the Olympic ideal. It was something that, according to the historian Herodotus, completely baffled outsiders. He tells a story of a Persian general questioning some Greek deserters before a great battle. The general asked what the Greeks were doing, and they told him they were celebrating the Olympic Games. When he asked what the prize for the victor was, they told him it was a wreath of olive. Imagine his shock. You can almost hear his disbelief. He apparently exclaimed, "Good heavens! What kind of men are these against whom you have brought us to fight? Men who do not compete for possessions, but for virtue." He simply couldn't comprehend a world where glory, or arete, was a greater motivator than gold. And for you, standing there with the wreath on your head, you understand it perfectly. This prize tells the world that you have earned the favor of the gods. But don't worry, the material rewards are coming. They just aren't waiting for you here in Olympia. The real payday happens when you get home. Now, your time at the festival of Zeus is over. The journey home is long and arduous, but you are no longer just an athlete returning from a competition. You are a hero, a conqueror returning with a prize more precious than spoils of war. As your home police, your city-state, comes into view, you notice something is different. A crowd is gathered outside the walls, and the sound that reaches you on the breeze isn't just chatter, it's a roar of celebration. They are waiting for you. This is the moment your life truly changes forever. Welcome to your hero's welcome. In the ancient world, an Olympic victory wasn't just a personal achievement, it was a victory for your entire community. You have brought immense honor, or kleos, to your people, and they are about to show you their gratitude. You are met at the outskirts of town and ushered toward a magnificent four-horse chariot. The leather reins feel unfamiliar in your hands, so used to the grip of a discus or javelin. As you ride toward the gates, the procession swells around you. The air fills with music and the joyful shouts of your name. It's an overwhelming sensory wave of sound and emotion. As you approach the city's main gate, you see something extraordinary. There is a hole in the city's formidable stone defenses. For a moment, you might feel a pang of confusion or fear. But then you understand. They have demolished a section of the wall for you. This is a profoundly symbolic gesture. The message is clear: a city that produces men like you, men capable of winning at Olympia, has no need for ordinary walls made of stone. Its true defense lies in the strength and virtue of its citizens. You are living proof of that strength. You enter your own city not through a gate like an ordinary traveler, but through a breach in the walls, like a conquering general. Once inside, the celebration reaches a fever pitch. Grand feasts have been prepared in your honor. The smell of roasting meat and spiced wine hangs heavy in the air, a welcome change from the simple fare of the athletic camps. You are paraded through the streets, the olive wreath from Olympia still on your head, a tangible link to your sacred victory. People reach out to touch your arm, to call your name, hoping to share in the divine favor that so clearly rests upon you. For an ordinary person in your city, your victory is a source of immense civic pride. It reaffirms their belief that their polis is favored by the gods, that their way of life is superior, and that they are part of something truly great. Your success becomes their success. Through it all, you just try to take it in, this dizzying transformation from a private citizen into a public monument. This is only the beginning of your rewards. The city has more planned than just a single day of feasting. They intend to make sure your victory is never forgotten. After the initial rapturous welcome, your home police sets about ensuring your legacy is properly cemented in the city's culture. In a quiet, sun-drenched public square, you are given a seat of honor. This isn't for another parade, but for something more permanent. Your city, or perhaps a wealthy patron, has commissioned the highest artistic honor possible in Epinikion, a victory ode. You sit there, perhaps feeling a little self-conscious, as the performance begins. The sharp, melodic notes of a lyre cut through the afternoon air, joined by the resonant voices of a specially trained chorus. Imagine the scene. The chorus, composed of men and boys from your own community, begins to sing and dance in practiced, rhythmic movements. They are performing a poem written by one of the great lyric poets of the age, a master like Pindar or Bacchylides. The poem tells your story. It speaks of the sweat and toil of your training, the climactic moment of your victory, but it does more than that. It weaves your personal achievement into the grand tapestry of your city's history and mythology. The poet praises your family, linking your lineage to heroes of old. Your victory is presented not as a fluke, but as the destiny of a man from a great family and a great city. Hearing your struggle and triumph turned into beautiful, enduring art is a profound experience. It's another layer of immortality. But here's the thing. While poets sing of virtue and odes are written to glory, the ancient Greeks were also intensely practical people. The concept of pure amateurism that we associate with the modern Olympics would have seemed bizarre to them. An athlete of your stature expected to be compensated, and your city was more than happy to oblige. Now comes the real payday. According to writers like Plutarch, the rewards could be staggering. If you were an Athenian citizen winning at Olympia around 600 BC, you could expect a one-time cash prize of 500 drachmae. To put that in perspective, a single drachma was often a day's wage for a highly skilled craftsman. You've just been handed a fortune, enough to dramatically change your family's standing for generations. And the perks didn't stop there. Beyond the lump sum of cash, you were often granted lifelong privileges that ensured your comfort and status. The most common of these was satesis, the right to take all your meals for free at the Prytaneon, the city's town hall, for the rest of your life. This was essentially an ancient state pension, a guarantee that you would never go hungry. You would dine alongside the city's highest officials and magistrates, a constant living reminder of the glory you brought home. On top of that, you were often granted complete exemption from taxes. Imagine your relief, knowing you would never again have to give a portion of your wealth to the state. When you decided to attend the theater or other public festivals, you wouldn't have to scramble for a spot. You'd be given a permanent, reserved front row seat. These weren't just perks, they were powerful, daily affirmations of your new, elevated status in society. With your finances secured and your name immortalized in poetry, the final stage of your transformation begins. You are about to become a living legend, a figure verging on the divine. In a culture obsessed with fame, legacy, and escaping the finality of death, an Olympic victory was a direct path to a kind of earthly immortality. Your first taste of this is seeing your name officially recorded, somewhere, either in Olympia itself or in your hometown's archives. Your name is inscribed onto the official register of Olympic victors. You are now a permanent part of history, a name to be read aloud for hundreds of years. To further solidify this legendary status, your city commissions a life-size statue in your honor. Picture yourself in the sculptor's workshop. The air is cool and smells of damp clay and the sharp mineral scent of stone dust. You have to stand perfectly still for what feels like hours as the artist measures your proportions, studies the curve of your muscles, and works to capture not just your likeness, but your essence, your art. The rhythmic tap-tap-tap of a chisel on marble becomes the soundtrack to your immortality. This statue might be erected in the most sacred place of all, the Altis at Olympia, for all of Greece to see. Or it might stand in the main square of your hometown, a constant inspiration to the next generation of athletes. Seeing your own form, perfected and immortalized in bronze or stone, is a humbling and awe-inspiring experience. You are no longer just a man of flesh and blood. Now, you are a full-blown celebrity. Your influence permeates society. Your name and perhaps even your likeness might be commemorated on newly minted coins, your profile sitting where a god or a mythological hero might otherwise be. You are a household name, a figure of immense public admiration. This fame was a powerful currency. Historians note that many Olympic victors went on to have incredibly successful political careers. Your athletic glory was seen as an outward sign of inner excellence, and people were eager to trust you with public office. Your victory at a religious festival suggested you had a special connection to the gods, and having you in a position of power was thought to bring continued divine favor to the entire city. In the end, the prize for your victory was so much more than that simple olive wreath. The Katinos was the key that unlocked a whole new life. It brought you wealth that could secure your family's future. It brought you honors that placed you at the center of civic life. It brought you a level of fame that turned you into a political influencer and a public icon. It transformed you from a mortal athlete into a demigod in the eyes of your peers, a hero whose story would be told for generations. So the next time you see a modern athlete celebrating with a gold medal, remember your ancient counterpart. He got a crown of leaves, a poem, a statue, free dinners for life, and a crack in the city wall made just for him. Somehow, it seems like a pretty fair trade. Welcome to the final chapter of our journey. For over 1,000 years, the Olympic Games have been a constant. They have been the heartbeat of the Greek world. But here's the thing, nothing lasts forever. The world is changing in ways the early athletes could never have imagined. Picture this, the steady, sacred rhythm of the games is beginning to falter. The ground beneath your feet is shifting, and the ideals you once held dear are starting to feel a little old-fashioned. A new power is rising in the West, and its values are not the same as yours. The end is not coming like a thunderclap. It's more like a slow, creeping fog. In the later centuries of the Games, you notice a subtle change in the athletes' village. The conversations are different now. There is less talk of elite, that blend of excellence and virtue, and more talk of money. You are a young pancratiast, strong and full of hope. But you listen to the older, more seasoned competitors. They speak of a circuit of games, a year-round profession. Your training is no longer just for the honor of your city-state or for the glory of Zeus. It's your job. You feel the rough leather of your practice gloves, and you can almost hear the clink of coins. The smell of the olive oil in the gymnasium is now mixed with the scent of commerce, and it changes how victory feels. Somehow, they managed to turn a sacred duty into a career path. By the 2nd century BC, Greece has been absorbed into the Roman Empire. Now, when you arrive at Olympia, the crowd feels different. It's louder, more raucous. You hear Latin being spoken alongside Greek. The Romans love a good show, and for them, that's what this is, a spectacle. You see them in the stands, more interested in the blood and the falls than the religious ceremony. The solemn prayers to Zeus feel rushed, the sacred rituals downplayed. The rules have also changed. It's no longer just for Greeks. Your competitors could be from anywhere in the vast Roman world. This was meant to be a celebration of Hellenic identity, but now it feels like just another stop on the international entertainment circuit. The year is AD 67. You are an official at Olympia, a Hellenodikai. A rumor has been swirling, one so absurd you dismissed it at first. But now, it's confirmed. The emperor is coming. Not just to watch, but to compete. Emperor Nero himself. You can feel a cold knot of anxiety in your stomach. He's forced your predecessors to hold the games 2 years ahead of schedule, just to fit his vacation plans. You walk through the sacred grove, the Altis, and the air feels heavy, tense. The ancient statues of past victors seem to judge you. The usual sounds of training and quiet reverence are replaced by the frantic noise of preparations for an emperor. Your job is to uphold the sacred rules of the games. But what do you do when the most powerful man in the world decides he wants to break them? Imagine you are a spectator in the stands in AD 67. The chariot race, the most prestigious event, is about to begin. But something is wrong. Down in the hippodrome, you see the normal 4-horse chariots lining up. And then you see it. A colossal 10-horse chariot, an ostentatious display of power and wealth. It's Nero's. The race begins in a cloud of dust and a thunder of hooves. It's a chaotic, dangerous event on a good day. For Nero, it's a disaster. You watch as he is thrown from his massive chariot, tumbling into the dirt. He doesn't even finish the race. Yet, when the dust settles, you hear the herald's announcement. Your ears must be deceiving you. Nero is declared the winner. A wave of stunned silence washes over the crowd, a collective understanding that you've all just witnessed a farce. Nero, of course, won every single event he entered. According to historians, he even introduced new competitions in music and acting, areas where he felt particularly gifted. You can just picture it. Congratulations, you've just received your olive wreath for poetry from a man who bribed his way to a chariot victory. After he left, the Olympic officials, in a quiet act of defiance, struck his name from the official list of victors. But the damage was done. You walk through Olympia after his departure. The place feels tainted. The integrity of the games has been transformed into a political tool for a single, insecure man. You touch the cold stone of the temple of Zeus, and for the first time, it feels less like a sanctuary and more like a stage. The human impact was a deep sense of corruption that seeped into the very soil of this sacred place. Now let the decades and centuries pass. You watch as a new religion spreads across the empire. It's a faith that speaks of one God, not a pantheon on a mountain. The followers of Christianity see places like Olympia differently. To you, it's the center of the world, a place of divine power. To them, it is a pagan relic, a festival for a false god. You see fewer and fewer worshippers making the pilgrimage. The crowds thin. The energy that once electrified this valley begins to fade into a quiet hum. The air no longer buzzes with anticipation for the next Olympiad. Instead, there's a feeling of waiting for an inevitable end. Through it all, a few faithful priests and athletes try to keep the traditions alive, but they are swimming against a powerful tide. In 393 AD, the final blow comes. You are an old priest, your hands wrinkled from a lifetime of service to Zeus. A decree arrives from the capital, bearing the seal of Emperor Theodosius I, a devout Christian. You unroll the scroll, and the words are stark and unforgiving. All pagan cults and festivals are banned. It's not a negotiation, it's an order. There is no ceremony, no final blaze of glory. After nearly 1200 years, the Olympic Games are simply over. You stand in the quiet sanctuary, the setting sun casting long shadows from the columns. You hear only the wind rustling through the olive trees. The silence is deafening. The legacy of generations extinguished with the stroke of a pen. After the ban of 393 AD, Olympia becomes a ghost of its former self. Don't worry, the site doesn't vanish overnight. For a time, it simply sits there, a monument to a forbidden faith. But in 426 AD, another emperor, Theodosius II, decides that forgetting isn't enough. He orders the active destruction of the pagan temples. Imagine you are there, hidden among the trees, watching as Roman soldiers march into the sacred Altis. You hear the sickening crack of hammers against marble. You feel the tremor as they use ropes to pull down priceless statues. The air, once filled with incense and prayer, is now thick with the choking dust of destruction. This isn't just ending a festival, it's a deliberate attempt to erase a culture from the face of the earth. With the sanctuary desecrated and abandoned, nature begins its slow work of reclamation. In the years 522 and 551 AD, the entire region is rocked by massive earthquakes. Picture yourself miles away, feeling the ground beneath you heave and roll violently. At Olympia, this is the final, catastrophic blow. The remaining columns of the great temple of Zeus, which had stood for 1,000 years, finally topple and shatter. The workshops, the treasuries, the stadium entrance, all of it crumbles into ruin. The sound would have been a deafening roar of grinding stone, a final scream from the dying sanctuary. The human inhabitants are long gone, but the very earth seems determined to finish the job that the emperors started. Over the next 1,000 years, the rivers take over. You are a medieval farmer, living your life by the Alpheus River. To you, the land upstream is just a series of strange, lumpy hills in a marshy floodplain. You have no idea what lies beneath. Year after year, the river floods, depositing a thick blanket of silt. Landslides from the hill of Kronos add to the debris. The ruins of Olympia are slowly, gently buried. They are covered by a layer of earth up to 7 meters deep in some places. The site is lost. Its memory survives only in the fragile pages of ancient texts, but its physical location becomes a mystery. You walk over the forgotten ground, feeling the damp soil under your feet, never knowing that a whole world of gods and heroes sleep silently below you. The truth was, Olympia was waiting to be found. In the 19th century, a new fascination with the classical world sweeps across Europe. In 1875, a German archaeological team, led by a man named Ernst Curtius, arrives with a singular purpose. Imagine you are part of that team. For weeks, you do nothing but dig. The work is hot, muddy, and exhausting. And then one day your shovel hits something hard. It's not a rock. You clear the dirt away, your heart pounding. You feel the cool, smooth texture of carved marble. It's the corner of a building. Soon, your team unearths temples, sculptures, and the full layout of the ancient sanctuary. You are literally touching the past. The feeling is electric. For the first time in over 1,300 years, the lost world of the Olympics is revealed to the light of day, and the world is captivated. The rediscovery of Olympia captured the public's imagination, including that of a young French aristocrat named Pierre de Coubertin. Picture this: you are in a lecture hall in Paris in 1894. You are listening to this passionate educator speak. He doesn't just talk about ancient history, he talks about the future. He has a vision, inspired by the British school system's focus on sport and the ancient Greek ideal of a balanced mind and body. You hear him propose something radical to revive the Olympic Games as a modern, international festival. He believes it could promote peace and understanding between nations. It's a beautiful idea, connecting the ancient world to the modern. In the end, his passion is infectious, and the International Olympic Committee is born. Just 2 years later, in 1896, you find yourself standing in the Panathenaic Stadium in Athens. The air is filled with an incredible energy. This isn't a dusty ruin, it's a living event. The stadium, a beautiful marble structure, is packed with people from all over the world. You hear the King of Greece officially declare the first modern Olympic Games open. You can feel the weight of history in that moment. It's a direct link back to those ancient athletes who competed just a few hundred kilometers away. The human impact is a profound sense of continuity, a feeling that a great idea was not lost, but was simply sleeping. Somehow, they managed to bring this ancient tradition back to life. Now, let's compare the two. In ancient Olympia, you are surrounded by religion. The entire event is a festival for Zeus. You can smell the roasting meat from the 100 oxen sacrificed in his honor. Prayer and ritual are woven into every competition. But in the modern games, you find yourself in a secular space. The rituals are civic, the raising of flags, the playing of anthems. The smell is of popcorn and hot dogs. It's a celebration not of a god, but of human achievement and national pride. The core purpose has fundamentally shifted from pleasing the divine to celebrating humanity. This difference extends to the athletes themselves. The ancient ideal was the amateur, competing for honor. But as we've seen, that was often a myth. Athletes received huge rewards. So next time you see a modern athlete covered in corporate logos, don't worry, it's not entirely a new phenomenon. The modern games started with a strict amateur code but have now fully embraced professionalism. And what about peace? The ancient Olympic truce wasn't about ending all war, it was a practical tool to ensure safe travel. The modern Olympic movement, however, was born from Coubertin's dream of using sport to actively build bridges and foster peace. It's an aspiration that is central to its identity. In the end, Despite the vast differences, the spirit of the original games endures. You can find it in the modern Olympic values of excellence, friendship, and respect. These are the direct descendants of that ancient Greek idea of arete. The belief that sport can make us better people, and in turn, make a better world, is a powerful thread connecting our time to theirs. It's a philosophy now called Olympism. It ensures that the legacy of those first athletes, who ran, wrestled, and threw for the glory of their gods in a sacred grove, lives on every time a flame is lit and the world comes together to play. And with that, we scrape away the last of the oil and dust. The contest is over, and the sacred flame is extinguished for now, leaving only the quiet echo of a world that forged gods out of men. We have felt the brutal sting of the judge's whip, and understood the profound glory of a simple olive branch, a divine symbol of ultimate victory. As you lay in the stillness, perhaps you can still feel the burning in your lungs from the hoplitodromos, or the pride of returning a hero to your home city. Thank you for settling in with us, wherever you may be. To know we've shared this quiet exploration of what it truly meant to be an Olympian is a truly peaceful feeling. The games are over, and the true meaning of arete now rests with you. You are no longer just a spectator, you are an initiate into the spirit of Olympia. A like serves as your final, silent nod to the athletes of the past, a gesture of respect for the brutal path they walked to achieve glory. To subscribe is to join the inner circle of this gymnasium, ensuring you are called from the training grounds the moment a new contest of history is announced. Don't let this journey be a fleeting dream, make your mark as one who truly understands the ancient way. And now, let the sound of my voice fade into the background. Your training is done for the night. The crowds have gone home, the statues of the victors stand silent in the moonlight. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to win, just the gentle pull of sleep. Let the peace of the sacred grove at Olympia settle over you, and drift into a deep and tranquil rest. The fire of the games will be waiting for us to rekindle. Good night.